The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico wins it.
Kenny Thomas blocks. Gibson hustling down. He has some room. And he gets it. Oh, long three. He got it. Oh, my goodness.
Kendall Williams from 35 feet.
For the win. Snell. Got it. He got it. Wow. With 1.8 seconds remaining.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions. Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air, but New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State, and the Lobos claim the mountain.
It's another glorious episode of the Pit Press Podcast. My name's Ryan Tamori. I am your, what did I say once, Ed, sexy host. My name's Ryan Tamori. And I'll just cut right into it. I'm always joined by a Lobo fan since 1970 and a Western New Mexico and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustang. I actually doesn't get old saying that. Mr. Ed Nunez. Senor, how are you doing?
Doing great, Ryan.
And my business partner, co-founder, friend in this endeavor. I'm a little under the weather, so forgive me for my enthusiasm is usually not on par. The dry humor is probably going to come out, although Rick's quick wit is better than mine. Mr. Eric Malton, Senor, how are you?
Hey, good. What's up, guys? Let's get into it.
All right. And all the way from Northern California, a two-time All-State offensive lineman for one San Juan Mendoza. And he played for basketball for Damian Segura. And he was an MVP of like a 40 and older Filipino league in Northern California. We need an MVP chant. Mr. Rick Thompson, Senor, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just got blasted in the face by some soap and water by my daughter, but I'm prevailing and I'm ready to talk Lobos.
That dad life.
Yeah. I don't think anything can prepare you more for a grown man ranting about practice facility. I don't even have a quick joke there, but yeah, you'll see where we're going. And you can follow him at NM Sports Capper. He's one of the most knowledgeable sports fans that I know. He's got bookie roots. I don't even say that right. Just roots in Vegas with being a bigwig there. Maybe sometime we'll get your uncle on if he wants to talk about it. Mr. Jacob Neff, Senor, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. How about you?
I'm hanging in there. Busy show today. If I can keep the energy on a high level. We are going to preview UC Irvine. As I played that show intro, it was our basketball intro, and rightfully so. If you've been living under a rock and are somewhat of a sports fan in Albuquerque or New Mexico, NMSU played in a bowl game in Jeff Simbietta's the Isleta, New Mexico Bowl, which somebody that I know well, Jeff Simbietta is the executive director of. I'm not here to blow smoke up his butt. I think he does a very good job with it each year. If you're a big college football fan, last year it was BYU and SMU, and that game was on primetime in ABC. I'm a college football fan, so I defend it. I think he's done a good job with it. And for the most part, unless you're a New Mexico State Aggie, it's been an entertaining game for the 18 years it's been put on. Jerry Kill with a rant after the game, and if you need the context of the story, Diego Pavia, the NMSU quarterback, who is a Volcano Vista High grad, he's from the Albuquerque area, sometime during the late summer, took a piss on the urinated on the UNM practice facility, and if there's a timeline that was released, that was like in July, August, it was released after the September 16th game, in which UNM lost to NMSU here at University Stadium in Albuquerque, 27-7. And then NMSU has a phenomenal season, goes to the Conference USA title game. If Diego Pavia does not get hurt, who knows? Neff and I watched that game. It was a pretty good game. They did not. Liberty covered, though, damn it. I rode. I'll say this side note. I rode NMSU a lot this year, and they won me some money. Not so much lately, but they won me some money. So I enjoyed, to preface that, I enjoyed watching them. I'm a fan of good football, and I'm a proponent of New Mexico State being decent or good in sports to elevate what UNM has to do. Getting off on a side tangent there, not a very good storyteller. Anyway, after the game on Saturday, Jerry Kill, which I have to say is the most exciting. I was there for it, sitting behind New Mexico State athletic director Mario Mocha, who was in the front row for this whole endeavor, which nobody's talked about, I don't think, which I thought was great. And I'm not trying to throw anybody on, put anybody on the spot here, but Will Weber of the Santa Fe New Mexican, he's a friend of ours. I've known him for many years. He was sitting in front of me to the right, and he kind of looked at me and looked at other media members when Jerry Kill started going on his rant, and it was pretty good. Essentially, Jerry Kill claimed that New Mexico athletic director Eddie Nunez denied them similar facility time as Fresno State. I have heard contradicting things. I won't delve into them because to me it seems to be hearsay, but I have heard from multiple people that NMSU had to practice at Milne. God bless them. And I'm sure Rick and Jacob will attest to that, who played high school football. I didn't play there. I went to games there. But Jerry Kill essentially went on a rant, and I'll give my opinions. Here's some of it, and I got to give shout out. We didn't have audio of this, so I had to rip it from KVIA and KOAT here in town. KVIA is KOAT's sister station down in El Paso. If you're not familiar with this, Las Cruces is technically a part of the El Paso market with distance-wise. So if you've never been to Las Cruces, and I know I'm sorry I sound like a parent explaining this, you do not get Albuquerque news channels. You will get news out of El Paso. But here is Jerry Kill. This is thanks to KVIA.
We had all kinds of stuff, here at the bowl game trying to get done. We had to fight his ass off to get us to be able to practice in an indoor because of a situation that happened, down the road. Most of you know that. We disciplined the young man. I hope the AD here gets the same damn discipline with the people around this state that Diego got, because he deserves it. And you can ask the college football profession. I've had class. Never been treated like that. And guess what? When that incident happened, I didn't know about it for 2 months. And we beat them right here. Then they tell me after the game, take that to the bank. And he better be disciplined. He better be disciplined by the state. And if he's not, it's a crime.
Here's more of this rant from KOAT here in Albuquerque.
I hope the AD here gets the same damn discipline with the people around this state that Diego got, because he deserves it. And it don't bother me a damn bit when he don't let us want to practice in the indoor facility, when he don't want us to do this and do that. That's chicken. I've had class. Never been treated like that.
If it's redundant, I apologize. I wanted to get the chicken shit part in there. Few things. That first part, he's referencing Jeff Symbieta. Again, I've heard from other schools that Jeff, it's a very first-rate experience. So, not sure if that changed this year. First off, in the same rant, Jerry Kill said that he was going to go down to drink margaritas in Mexico, and then proceeded to use the word chicken shit twice. I don't know if that's classy at all. I'm trying to remain objective. I will say this is, was the best thing I had been a part of in regards to UNM and NMSU football in like 15 years. It was the most exciting thing that I think has happened. That's a terrible joke. I don't know what NMSU fans we have that listen. This is kind of a lighthearted, opinionated show in which we've predominantly kind of been founded over UNM basketball, but we're trying to do other things. I have not gathered the full story. I've heard multiple things with my connections in town, and I'm not saying like I'm some like hey, I'm well connected in Albuquerque. He's probably like saying I'm a fly on shit, but I don't. It was comical to me. I don't know where Jerry Kill's going from. He was probably definitely a little irritated because they got their ass kicked, and he said that as he left the podium, which is the greatest ending of all time. I wish we still had that, because he got up and after he finished his rant, he said, "And we got our damn ass kicked," and he literally walked off the podium. 37-10. The Conference USA Player of the Year, Diego Pavia, was 11 of 25 for 58 yards from the air and an interception. He ran for a touchdown. This Fresno State team manhandled the Aggies. I tweeted it out, and I really don't like to tweet out my own opinion, and I'd rather try to be funny and fail at that. And I usually just repost on Twitter great Simpsons clips from the 90s or something that Barstool does, or I'm tweeting at my friends such as Rick or guys I went to high school with something stupid we see. I don't know, like midget wrestling. But I will say this, I think, just my opinion, and I've seen it firsthand, and it will probably get me in trouble, that UNM is full of shit, and I like Eddie Nunez, and New Mexico State is full of shit. There is something that, as I've become a father, that have tried to teach accountability, and I'm not getting political in this. I think we've had a president of the United States who can't take accountability for his own actions, and he points the fucking finger. And I think that everybody now just points the finger, and they can't take blame for themselves. I am somebody who got a DWI. I take accountability for it. I'm embarrassed. In a little bit of debt, embarrassed by that. I have to take accountability and made my own bed. That's something I've tried to maneuver into my own, as I get older, pushing 40, and trying to be a man about things. I think this is a full-blown pissing contest, and it's quite stupid. But from what I've heard, and I agree with kind of everything that has been said in regards to, you're not going to let somebody come into your house that has urinated in, taken a piss in your house and come in. You're not just going to let them come back in. I think the Journal had reported that there were New Mexico State police or some sort of police activity, but a presence at New Mexico State practices during the week. I don't know, that's just my opinion in the nutshell, but I will end this and I'll throw it over to Eric. I'm just saying this, and I will say it more PG this time. UNM has lied, whether it's been recent, and I know no entity is perfect, but I've seen it firsthand. I've been a part of it firsthand, and I think it's pretty evident what NMSU has done by just hiding everything. It's pretty weak, it's pretty weak stuff. But I don't know who wins here, because not only was an NMSU player, and it goes back to the shooting, an NMSU basketball player who I thought was stupid for breaking curfew, acted in self-defense, killed somebody, got shot, ended up in the hospital. Diego Pavia urinates. You have a little bit of pettiness, and I sort of do, defend. I was kind of defending Kill, and then I was defending Nunez. I don't know where I stand. But, to the rest of the country, as far as I'm concerned, it probably looks like the stupidest rivalry and a little bit more hate-filled than you would think. I know this isn't Harvey Updike after Cam Newton beat Auburn in the 2010 Iron Bowl, going and poisoning the trees at Toomer's Corner in Auburn, Alabama. But that's how I feel. A little bit more, of a rant that I kind of got, a little bit heated on. That's just where I stand, and I'll shut up now. Eric, I just wanted your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, I don't really have a stance in necessarily defending one side or the other. From the stories that I kind of collected and just my own a personal opinion, I thought both schools had equal access to the facilities, which turned out to be true, which a lot of people and a lot of outlets had reported on. I worked the New Mexico Bowl probably a good 10 years ago. And it is a first class event. And I know Jeff Symbieta wouldn't let something like a first class event that's represented on national TV, on ESPN, something like that kind of self implode, right? And I agree with you, Ryan, and the whole accountability perspective of it. I think both universities, both athletic departments need to own up to, or just removing the whole pettiness side. And I'm not saying a lot of it was malicious, but the fact that this all started and there's just a huge trend with the accountability factor at New Mexico State, just the trend of things that had happened last year, not with the shooting, right? The kids skipping out on curfew, and then Pavia. Like, where is Mocha in this whole thing? And then Pavia came out with that statement. He did an interview with that KVIA. I forget the name of the reporter's name. She's actually been on this
Rachel
podcast.
Phillips.
It was a backhanded apology, if you even want to call it that, because he actually never apologized and just referred to the fact that New Mexico never recruited him, or Danny Gonzalez never recruited him, so that automatically makes it okay. There just seems to be zero accountability held to a lot of this. So maybe it was a little bit of pettiness on UNM side to kind of, I don't know if it was gamesmanship or what have you, but this is a professional run event. There's a lot of money involved. Albuquerque in the state of New Mexico made a lot of money. I mean, just from an economic standpoint, and people traveling to Albuquerque, lodging, food and alcohol tax. Like, it was what was it? What was the announced 30,000, 31,000 fans
Just
showed
about,
up?
just south of 31,000.
Like, we can't let that kind of be removed from the equation. And to me, it was a successful event. It's just, I think Kill's statements kind of were a little bit emotional or emotionally driven. Let him get the best of it. And I don't know if he necessarily had his facts straight. And then the Albuquerque Journal came out with an article said that both sides had kind of met and squashed a few things. There was some misunderstanding. Yeah, I think both universities just need to move on from it, and off we go. We're in the middle of basketball season, so let's kind of just turn the page.
Rick, I'm going to go to you next, and I've already made this joke on this on this podcast, and I didn't cut the sound clip because you love Chappelle's Show. I thought about when Jerry Kill nobody asked him a question, and for some reason this popped in my mind.
Yeah, it was a tragedy. Can you repeat the question?
Even though he wasn't asked a question. I'm sorry. Just your thoughts on the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess based on Jeff Grammer's article earlier today in the Journal, my understanding is earlier in the year or maybe some time ago, there was some comments made by Nunez saying that they might have to consider not allowing them to practice there, but that was in the past. But upon arriving to the bowl game, that New Mexico State was given the same access as Fresno. So it seems like to me that Kill remembered what had been said and was like, well, you don't want us practicing here. We're going to go to Milne and practice there. And we want to use the urinals there that look like bathtubs that we make our high school teams play at, that I've experienced myself. So I'm sure that was a humbling experience for the players. I guess the second thing I just have is it's just interesting to see the animosity. I didn't know that the rivalry was this bitter between people on Twitter. I mean, throwing their whole livelihood between comments and things like that. So it's good to see the rivalry still stands up, but it's just disappointing to see that both Nunez and Kill wouldn't come forward with the facts, but have now squashed it. Obviously, they both did something wrong and don't want to put out the facts. I'm just happy we're moving forward.
I appreciate that, Ed. I'm saving you for last on this on purpose. So, Jacob, just your thoughts, because when I said, "Hey, we're doing a podcast tonight on UC Irvine and we're going to talk about Kill," and you were like, "Oh yeah, I have some comments." So, the floor is yours.
Yeah, here's my thing with the whole New Mexico State and New Mexico thing. Obviously, since the shooting happened last year, and the whole thing has went on. I feel like, and I'm not saying UNM is right in this, but I feel like there's never a onus on or an ownership on New Mexico State side for some of the things that happen, right? I don't think that you should be. They never took accountability really for their players leaving curfew early. The fact that there was, guns being shot and he was meeting up with, somebody on campus, this, that, and the other. There was fights at their football game that stem from that whole thing, and potentially some, hoaxing going on at that. And then, Pavia does this on the field, and he says he found out 2 months later or whatever it is, or he did it 2 months. He didn't find out until whatever, that kind of shows that you don't really know what your guys are doing. You don't really have full, control of your players. And that seems to be quite the theme when it comes to some of the actions that have been taking place right on New Mexico State side. But it always comes to fall on we did something wrong, right? Or something like that. So that would be my perspective on it. I don't think, like you guys have both covered, I don't think either side is right. We're talking about, we should queue up some Allen Iverson things. We're talking about practice, right? I just don't understand why that was such a big deal and why that wouldn't have come out prior to the game if it was hindering any of their preparation or anything like that. I feel like you would make that statement, but then once you get your ass kicked, in a game and it boils over, then all of a sudden you come out and you say, oh no, we didn't get the same treatment, this, that, and the other. And it almost seems like kind of like an excuse, So that's just my opinion. And like you said, I don't think either team's right, but it seems to be a common theme when these situations keep coming up.
Ed, I turn to you.
Well, I've listened to what everybody said, and I think one of the things when this first happened, they didn't make him available. They said he was sorry. Jerry Kill said in the paper that he was cleaning toilets with toothbrushes, and we highly doubt he did that. What I think happened, he probably told Pavia, hey, the heck with the man, you did it, it's over. There's no love there for the Lobos anyway, so I don't know that Coach Kill, maybe he said he shouldn't have done that. I thought it was over. They didn't. They tried to sweep it away, and there was never any. I think this would have gone away really rather quickly if there had been an apology. I didn't mean to do that. Both teams move on. It's over with. But you didn't make him accessible to any interviews. His apology was more like, "Yeah, I shouldn't have done it." And then I think what happened when the Aggies lost and Kill saw something that triggered him. I don't know what it was. It could have been a New Mexico Lobo something, and all of a sudden he goes off on this tangent. And I thought it was classless. I did. They did have a good season. They had what we call a milagro season, right? 2 seasons in a row. They went to a bowl game, and they were in. They played for the conference championship, which hasn't happened in years. So I thought his tangent afterward was about Jerry Kill rather than about the New Mexico State football program and what they had accomplished this season. So yeah, maybe you're right, Ryan and Jacob and Rick that Eric, that New Mexico did stuff wrong too. Maybe Eddie did say that, but and in defense of Eddie, I got to say this: if someone came in and pissed in my room or my carpet, I'd have a problem with that too. I would. So I'm glad that cooler heads seem like they prevailed, and it's hope But I got to say this: Bronco Mendenhall just took over, so next year in Las Cruces, there's going to the first 5 questions for Bronco are going to be about, hey, what about Coach Kill? What about this? What about that? And he's just stepping into this. So, Rick, you mentioned the rivalries ramping up a little bit. I think that's good, as long as they keep it between the lines and nobody gets hurt. Right? I've hated the Aggies for years. I've say that still. I'll never like them. Now, when the game started on Saturday, I did try to say, hey, they got out coached, they got outworked, they got outplayed. They're the bread and butter they like to go to, that quarterback draw, shut down. The passing game, shut down. So I think he was a little bit upset about that. They got outplayed, they got outcoached. Something triggered him. I don't know what it was. He saw something that reminded him of something, and boom, went off. So, but I'm glad again that both sides talked. I'm not saying New Mexico was innocent in this at all, but I'm glad the temperatures are going down. And then next year in Las Cruces, let's kick their butt. That's what I say. We'll see.
I was going to play a joke and say, hey, I found the Diego Pavia apology.
As they're backed up on 2nd and 22. Backpedaling. Pavia is going to go down the seam, and it's intercepted. Picked off at the 41-yard line by Dean Clark, the Kent State transfer.
It didn't land, so I just put the hell with it. Nobody's listening anyway. Thank you, Bob Euchre, Major League. I feel like Pavia probably should have apologized. We all agree with that. And I'm, again, not political, and I don't knock anybody for their religion. I'm not religious. I just feel on his Twitter, he's always thanking the Lord. What would Jesus do? I don't think he would walk into somebody's yard and take a piss. That's just where I'm at with that. And I think we've all said our piece, but it does kind of, it really does ignite the rivalry to a whole nother level. And as we mentioned before, I don't know if it's truly, I don't even know if it's truly a rivalry. It feels more, stupid. I mean, I had to get off Twitter on Saturday night because it was NMSU people saying, Nunez is an asshole. I'm behind Kill. Then you had UNM people saying, Kill's an asshole. I'm behind Nunez. He's classy. And it's like, again, my piece of paper, my degree says UNM. It just, I don't know where you go, but you're also talking to a guy, like I said. I won on Terry. What was his name? Neff 2 years ago against UConn. Teddy Allen, right? I took them money line. I just had a funny feeling 12-5. I don't hate New Mexico State. Again, to me, if they're good, it's good for UNM. And I think that's why probably Bronco Mendenhall was hired. And again, you're talking to somebody who was probably the stupidest decision, dealt with the stupidest decision by Paul Krebs, which was Mike Locksley. Now, I know he's kind of changed his tune. He's done pretty good at Maryland. He's getting them to bowl games. I know somebody that is a Maryland alum. At least I think he's a Maryland alum. He's from the area. He's a big Maryland fan, and he works for CBS Sports. And, for him to get them for Locksley to get them 3 straight bowl games, the Terrapins, it's what do you say, Ed? El Milagro? Like it's a miracle, right?
Milagro, miracle, yeah. Un milagro.
Anyway, we turn our attention now to UC Irvine, and something I'm probably at this point, as much as I love college football, I was tired of talking about that crap. UC Irvine with, by the way, the best nickname maybe in the country, the Anteaters. I love it. This is a team that went 23-12 last year. They tied first in the Big West, 15-5. And I'm just going to go straight over to Jacob Neff, who is our in-house college basketball, I don't know, specialist knowledge. I don't know, Ben Stein. What do you know about? Well, yeah, that'll be the name of the show. We'll have college basketball questions, and it's Win Jacob's Neff Money. What do you know about UC Irvine?
Yeah, so this is a team that was projected to be second in the Big West. They're respectable, definitely a middle class team right now in college basketball as far as what they could have done. But that's also hindered off of some of their injuries that they've had. And they haven't been at 100% healthy over the last over the last month, I would say. But they're starting to get healthy again. Something that I know about them is they don't play too fast. They don't play too slow. They kind of just, work to whatever works for them during that game. I think they rank somewhere in the 150s for adjusted pace. So, not too bad, not too slow, not too fast, like I was saying. But they are a pretty deep team. They go about 10 or 11 guys deep in some cases. So they do have some depth, and they do like to rotate players. Another thing is they're two guys that I know of that are, are, I would say three in a sense, that they rely on is, the first one's Justin Hahn. He's their best player. He's a guard. He doesn't force the action. He just kind of flows with the offense. He can shoot, but he doesn't force anything. I think he's shooting around 48% on the year. So he's pretty solid. He does shoot some threes. He knows how to take it to the basket, but he kind of flows the offense. And then they're a big team. They've got two guys in this lineup that are 6'10 and 6'11. One's a senior and one's a freshman. Carter Welling is the freshman, and Dean Keener is the senior. And they rotate those guys pretty good. And they've even had a third guy coming in as far as depth for their posts, and he's 7'1", and his name is Bent Luckton. That's something that we've talked about on this podcast with where the Lobos struggle, right, is having some post presence as far as off the bench. And so this game's going to be super important that Nelly and Toppin stay out of foul trouble, right? Because I think we're going to see more forcing than we usually do tomorrow, just because there's going to have to be some sort. Sometimes they put Keller and Keener and Welling on the floor at the same time, right? So you got a 6'10 and a 6'11 guy in there. However, when I was looking at their team and when I've seen them play, they're not really overly aggressive big guys, so their athleticism is going to be dominated by Nelly and Toppin. We're going to definitely have the athleticism edge there, but they just have the bigger team, right? So that's kind of what I know about them. I will say I know that they're 1-4, I believe, in true road games this year. They lost to San Jose State to open up the year in San Jose, so that was a rough loss. And ironically, the only game that they've won on the road this year is at USC. And with that, they were shorthanded that night, USC. So they could potentially be, 0-5 in true road games if they had their full team. So that's a little bit of what I know about them. The only other thing that I think that jumps off the page with them is that they're not very aggressive. So we should be able to stay out of foul trouble, which is, a positive for us because of, like we were saying, the post presence and the post depth. But that's a little bit of what I know about UC Irvine.
Rick, I want to appreciate you for your notes today, but hey, essentially two common opponents. They beat NMSU 91-74. They beat Toledo 77-71 in that Ball Dogs Classic that UNM played in. And they played San Diego State and lost to them on the road. Rick, just from hearing what Jacob said in your own research, what do you know about the Still Love It Anteaters?
Yeah, they do got some big anteaters on that team that can gobble up the boards. And I watched a little bit of the San Diego State replay, and the announcers on the game were likening this team to about a middle of the road Mountain West team. And when I watched them play, they kept up with them, and they only lost to San Diego State, in the end by 1. And they were missing that big man from Germany that Jacob was talking about. The other things I noticed about him is their point guard, Pierre Krakel. He's really quick. He leads them in assists, about 5.6 a game, and he kind of controls the tempo of the game, but he's shorter at about 6 foot. And then they have a top recruit out of Turkey who's actually their second leading scorer, and he plays off the bench, only playing 19 minutes a game. His name is Darren Saran. He's averaging 11.3 and 3.6 rebounds, but apparently this young man was recruited by over 19 Division I schools, and for some reason he chose to be an anteater. So I watched him. He can shoot from the outside. He comes off the bench and provides a spark. So I think he'll be getting some buckets for them. And they also have a transfer post from UNLV, Devin Tillis, who I kind of remember a few years ago. He didn't play too much as a freshman there, but he's averaging 11 and 6. So as Jacob mentioned, they play a bunch of guys. I couldn't even figure out who the starters were looking at the stats and the box scores, it changed almost every game. So it looks like it'll be a mix of guys that don't shoot a lot of threes, with only making 6.5 threes a game, which is close to what the Lobos make. So look for a game that is won in the paint and not a lot of 3-point attempts or makes.
This is a senior guard who, Justin Hahn, 25 points against USC. I think that was the night before Thanksgiving or that Friday, Black Friday. They won 70-60, and I know that USC was without, his name is escaping me. They were without
Collier and Collier.
They had Collier, but they didn't have Boogie Ellis and Kobe Johnson. Obviously no Bronny James at that point in time. That game kind of shocked me, and I think I took USC -2.5, and they lost. And I know USC hasn't been what I think a lot of preseason pundits thought they would be, but that's still a good win on the road. I think, Jacob, you had said it when you hear Sebastian Forsling's name. I don't know how many Lobo fans are like, oh no, here we go. Ed, when you hear like bigs like that and what you've seen out of this Lobo team, what do you expect? How do they attack the Anteaters?
Well, the Anteaters scored 80.5 points per game and give up 67.5, 37.7 rebounds to 30 for the opponent. So Jacob and Rick had mentioned some of the size that they have, but Jacob also mentioned they're not athletic big guys. They're big, tall. I don't know if they jump as high as a JT Toppin does. He mentioned Brett Luckton, the 7'1" guy, averages 9.6 per games, 0.6 points per game. Rick, you mentioned they don't shoot a lot of threes. They're 73 of 197 on the season for 37%. You mentioned they don't shoot a lot of threes. They don't. Their coach, Russell Turner, has been there 13th season and has 265 wins and has been named Big West coach 4 times, four times of the year. So the coach is pretty darn good. He's averaged 20 wins per season. So, but I think one of the things that, Jacob, you mentioned about Sebastian Forsling, Santa Clara went big on New Mexico. And Sebastian Forsling, the New Mexico still outscored them in the paint. And Jacob, one of the points you made about these Anteater big men, they're not that athletic, maybe not even as athletic as the Santa Clara big men, and New Mexico still had the advantage in the paint. So I think New Mexico with their small guard lineup, I think will have success in attacking the gaps. Donovan Dent likes to attack those gaps. True Washington didn't have a great game in Las Cruces. Maybe he's due for one. Here's the other thing, guys. They've got to get Jamal Baker involved. He had 3 shots last game. And so I'm hoping he gets involved tomorrow night. They need some more 3-point shooting, although they're winning without it. But I'd like to see him get involved tomorrow night. But I think, the Anteaters, they started out the season real well, then lost 3 in a row. They beat South Dakota 121-78 to get ready for this game. They've got some players. You mentioned Tillis, Rick. He's a good player. He's hit 12 threes on the season. So they do have size. They do. But I think New Mexico's athleticism and quickness, especially in transition, you want to get those non-athletic big guys running in transition and score the easy buckets like they did against Santa Clara and UC Santa Barbara. So I think this is going to be a good matchup for New Mexico personnel-wise. I do.
I've said it all year, and I don't know if any of you guys, we like Donovan Dent. Everybody loves Donovan Dent. We know what we get out of house. We've seen Isaac Mushila come alive. I don't know what we're going to see out of Mustafa Amzil tomorrow. Again, I feel bad for the kid, but he's played horrendous. We know what we've gotten out of certain players. I still feel that with Jamal Baker's being a veteran and who he's been, where he's been, I still think he's the X factor. But Eric, your thoughts on what to expect out of UNM versus UC Irvine?
Yeah, everyone had really good points. But one thing that I did want to mention, I think Neff touched on it at the very beginning, was just their overall depth, especially at the guard position. They have a lot of good guards that can score. Just looking at their averages, they have about 8, 9 guys that are kind of hovering right around double-digit points in average. So they're seeing a lot of bench points, a lot of bench minutes, which ranks 8th in the country. So this team's deep, and they do use their bench a lot. A lot of it's pretty guard heavy. That Darren Saran is the one guy that he's a freshman, right? The one from Turkey that kind of stands out the most. He's seeing about 18, 19 minutes a game, so he's playing about half a game. But when he's in there, he's super efficient. He's averaging about 12 points a game. They have a few other guards that are really good that also average a lot of points. But defensively, KenPom has him ranked 34th in the country. So this team likes to defend a little bit, might include some of the ball pressure because they do have a guard deep bench. So I would definitely look at that and see how it matches up with UNM's guard depth. I think UNM definitely has the advantage with more of the athletic and physical play of their guards, with Dent primarily taking it to the rim a lot, right, and him just being a stronger guard. And then really looking at their schedule and who have they played, right? You mentioned, Ryan, that they did play in that Bulldogs Classic, so they did get the same Pepperdine, Toledo, and Rice teams that UNM didn't struggle with at all. They all beat those teams. They lost to San Jose State on the road for the very first game of the year. They played New Mexico State. But the 2 or 3 games that really stand out on their schedule are going to be that USC. They did lose at Utah State and lost at San Diego State. Utah State's a little bit on the underrated side, so I think when Rick really touched on this team could probably be right in the middle of the pack of the Mountain West, I really agree with that. But when they lost to San Diego State, they lost 63-62. They played a San Diego State team that was without Jaden Ledee. So that's a major contributor for San Diego State. He was a big-time contributor in their Final Four run last year. So that was just one less physical player that they had to deal with that game. And San Diego State struggles to score regardless of if he's in the game or not. So I know that they had missed some of their bigs. I know Neff touched on that at the very beginning with missing some of their 6'11" and 7-foot guys for about 3 or 4 games at the beginning of the season. I think some of them are back now. So really, how physical are those bigs going to be? How well do they rebound, and how are they going to match up with UNM? So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for.
For those of you watching, we could hear Eric, but he gave us the old Max Headroom sneaking into your local news broadcast. I don't know who got that reference, but I'm a nerd. So just a heads up, Eric, we can hear you, but we can't see you. And I was trying to fix it. I couldn't do it fast enough. All right. I hope that this answer is a no. Jacob, did you see the lines at all?
I did actually see. I think they were -8.5 tomorrow.
Yeah.
I didn't see the over under, but I did see the line.
If you had this is why I was going to ask if you hadn't seen the line. Well, if you had to guess, and again, I always use Caesar Sportsbook. I'm looking at Sportsline on which is part of CBS Sports. If you had to guess what the over under was right now, what would you think it is?
Probably high 140s.
Dude, you're usually spot on, but it's over 152.5.
Okay. Yeah, I would I mean, that seems to be a little high, I would assume. We've started to see, especially in these games, the other team kind of fade, right? Especially these teams from like California, people that don't play at elevation, you start to see a fade in the second half, right? And that's starting to become more apparent as the season goes on, right? I know these guys are deep and they keep their guys fresh, but it's just still a different thing, right? We even saw how long it took Nelly to adjust to it, right? It doesn't, even if you're playing, 20, 25 minutes, it's still going to wear you out faster than it is when you're at sea level. And these guys haven't really went anywhere that has elevation yet, right? So I expect them to probably play a tough first half. And then I think we're going to start seeing the fade that we see in teams, right? They finally just start getting that mental fatigue, and things start slipping out the window for them. A lot of big guys. So we're going to see how, what their condition looks like. And like we were saying, some of these guys are just coming back, right? So that I think could work to our advantage. I've been saying the last couple of games, I thought those games were going to be a little closer than they were, but I'm starting to see the trend of these California teams, or, these teams that play at no elevation coming into the pit. They play a decent first half, and then they start to lose it at the end, right? So if I had to look at that game and take it, I'd probably say the under tomorrow. And then probably I like New Mexico to win probably by about 10 points. So I would probably have to take the Lobos tomorrow.
I was just going to ask her what you thought. Rick, to you, prediction.
I guess if I was taking the gambling line, I like the Anteaters to cover the 8.5. I think they play a similar style of game to us. Their guards aren't nearly as talented as what we have out there, but they've kept it close against the other Mountain West teams, beating, I think you said San Jose State early in the season. So I look for Lobos to win, but I think it'll be closer than 8 points for sure.
Ed, do you have any prediction for the game?
I think I'm thinking like 79-72 New Mexico. I don't know if they cover or not. That's just a first thought off the top of my head, and I think Jacob has a very good point about the elevation, and then again the crowd too. The crowd gets into it. You try to play a little bit harder because you want to match the intensity and the energy of the other team, and then before you know it, man, you're on the bench gassed and you don't know what happened. So I think Jacob makes a very good point there. So I'll take New Mexico. I don't know if you guys are more the line guys and things like that, under over. I think New Mexico wins.
What do you think the crowd's going to be like tomorrow night? I think that's a valid question.
I'm going to say dead. I think people are going to be doing other things for the holidays, and knowing Albuquerque, they're not going to be there.
Yeah. It's kind of sad, to be honest with you, man. I'll be honest. I think it's been a little sad when they show these games on TV. It really hasn't been that full this year. And I would say, this is the best team we've had since Alfred was around, right? And I know we're a basketball town, and I know there's a lot of people that watch them, and there's a lot of people that follow them. But it almost seems like this town doesn't come to a game until there's a ranking next to their name, right? And, a team like this could sneak up and bite you in the ass really quick without the home court advantage, right? So I think it's going to start being important, for people to get out to the games and really create that atmosphere that attracted somebody like Patino to come coach here, right? Because he always talks about, the crowd, we have the best home court. And if you want my opinion, I don't even think Patino, besides maybe a couple games like Iona last year when his dad came, and a couple of other games like New Mexico State, I don't think we've really seen the crowd that we could pull in there, right? It's been sporadic. So that's just my opinion.
Wyoming, I think about Wyoming during the 21-22 season with when Wyoming came in with Graham Ike when they were ranked. I was at that game, and it was packed and it was loud. Iona, and obviously UNLV last year, and then I watched the San Diego State game at home with you, and I know Eric, you were there, but yeah, I kind of looked at they played UCSB after New Mexico State, and I was just kind of like, man, this is a pretty good team. I know we're the kind of, I really enjoy the Big West and the West Coast Conference and the WAC, even what the WAC's become. So yes, New Mexico State, I'm still showing you some love, even though you're in Conference USA. I just enjoy. I think those one bid leagues, man, it's just so hard, and it's those. I think those kids are giving it all they've got, but to get to the tournament. But Eric, I didn't go to you a prediction.
Yeah, I'm right on par with kind of what Ed is thinking. Maybe like 8. I think the Lobos cover if it is going to be 8 points. Lobos go over 80 points is my guess, my prediction. I think the guard play will take over this game. See if they match up well, and they haven't faced a a tough defensive team. I know that San Diego State is considered a tough defensive team, but they're not the same San Diego State from years past. So I look for the Lobos to kind of turn up the heat a little bit. If I had to guess on crowd size, I'm going to say probably between 8, 9, maybe 10,000 on the higher estimation. Yeah, but I kind of agree with what Neff was saying a little bit. I think the Lobos are 10-1. The fans should be there, right? This team needs to get right before conference play starts. And I've watched a lot of Mountain West basketball, and I'm sure you guys have too. And Colorado State's on fire, Utah State's on fire. Like, those fans in those student sections are definitely showing up. I think it's Albuquerque's time to do their part.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I noticed is, or know what I was going to say. Sorry, COVID brain and then years of drinking. Is somebody when we had the watch party on Friday, somebody had mentioned, they were like, hey, and I know it was a kid, but he was like, hey, why aren't they ranked yet at like 10-1? And I was like, I don't mean like, he was obviously like a teenager, but I was like, dude, they haven't really played. Like, if they would have beaten like a top 25 team or a team on the verge of it, like on the road, I would say even that loss at St. Mary's, like they are probably a ranked the top 25 team. And even then, I don't know if they had beaten St. Mary's even then, if they would be ranked at 11-0. I'm sure they'd be getting a lot of, national attention. And like, hey, this second year in a row, UNM is one of the last unbeatens in the country. But yeah, the attendance kind of, man, it just, I'm shocked. I don't, you hear, and Jeff Symbieta and JJ Buck talk about it all the time, like that, people bitch and moan about the football program. Well, it's like, what do you want? You want to show up to the games? Do you want to pay a winning coach? Yeah, I was really shocked with the UCSB game, where after they came off the
savage beating
of New Mexico State at home. I was trying to get that in today. That I thought more people would be there. And half of all of Las Cruces was up here over the weekend, so there were like 4,000 or 5,000 people at that game at the Pan Am. But I understand that. Anyway, 8.5, I think, is a lot of points even at home. I know the UNM is kind of covered for the most part. They're probably like 9-3 against the spread, or 8-4, because they've blown some teams out of the water. And I always think they're a good over bet, but yeah, 152.5 is a lot. Well, we did dedicate half an hour to Jerry Kill and chicken shit. Then we wanted to dedicate, we wanted to make this more about basketball, but we could not wait any longer to talk about that. We tried to get some football players on yesterday, and again, we don't do this full time. We try to make this as clean, as good as possible. And the guests we've had on, we just couldn't make anything happen yesterday, so we apologize for that. But Rick, as always, thank you for joining us from Northern California, and we'll probably be talking to you post game.
Thank you, guys. Let's see the Lobos take on the eaters of the ants.
And Jacob Neff, you can follow him at NM Sports Capper. As always, man, your expertise on all these little, smaller schools, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ryan. Make your free throws tomorrow, boys.
Yeah, I got to wear the hat tomorrow. And Ed Nunez, a Lobo fan since 1970, and the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. Thank you for joining us, as always. And I'm glad you joined us tonight, especially for the Jerry Kill talk.
No, Ryan, thank you. And thank you guys, man. Always good talking Lobo sports with you.
Forgot to wear a Bills hat tonight. And to Eric Moulton, my business partner in this, and I had to throw that in there. My business partner in this endeavor. Thank you, man. And I'll see you at the game tomorrow night.
Sounds good, guys. See you later.
And as always, we appreciate our listeners. Whether you like us or not, we hope you like us, because I always say everything. So, to the Lobo fans out there that do listen to us and support you during this holiday season, we're coming up on a 1-year anniversary. We've eclipsed over 100 episodes. We have built a predominantly, I mean, we have built a very good looking website. At least I think, we think so. I'm trying to write more, although it's very hard with this another full-time job, a 6-year-old. And then we do this, but again, during this holiday season, we just appreciate all your support and thank you for listening.